Hey everyone, Sycra here, and in this lesson I'm going to be showing you how to create some cool effects using screen and color dodge layers to make some things like lightning and fire. And so right now I'm just, creating a background thing, a monster, Cyclops guy in time-lapse. And in case anyone's wondering, in the upper left corner, I have a painter's wheel. The link to download that is in the resources section of my site, www.sycra.net. I believe it's called the Len White color wheel. And what else? Oh yeah, just one more thing. If you're going to do this technique, you have to use a background that is not white. If you use a white background, it's not going to work. So the first thing I'm going to do is create two new layers. And one is going to be called screen, and one is going to be called color dodge. And I'm going to fill both of these with black. Now, can't see anything, right? But I'm going to change the mode from normal to color dodge on the color dodge layer, and from normal to screen. And in either of these layers, when you have pure black, it doesn't show up. Like, nothing will show up. That's really dark, but anything light will show up. So I'm going to show you just a few different effects you can achieve, and why I use this. Well, I won't go into too much detail about all the technical reasons of why I use this or that. A lot of it has to just do with experience and trying many different things. So let's start with lightning. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to draw some lightning. And maybe this guy's like Emperor Palpatine, and he can shoot lightning from his fingers. So I'm starting off with doing some like lightning-y type movements. And you want to keep the lightning somewhat thin, or relatively thin. You can make some thicker ones, but you want to keep it thin, and you want to have this very wiggly, kind of straight, wiggly. I know it's a contradiction. Okay, so it's not like this. It's like that type of line. And then you want to make sure, where it splits, kind of gets a bit lighter. So the old way I used to do lightning was I would just, so this is on its own layer, I would just double click on this, and then it brings up the layer style, and I'd go to an outer glow and maybe make it blue, something like that, and increase the spread to 1% and the size, just do it until it feels a bit good, and the opacity can go up. So that's the way I used to do lightning, and I mean, it kind of works, but it's not exactly how lightning actually looks. You don't get this very consistent area around each bolt of lightning. So I'm going to turn off this, and I'm going to show you how I would approach it now. So I'm going to get a blue color similar to what I was using, and what happens with lightning is it actually lights up all the air around it. I'm going to go on a color dodge layer. I'm going to use I am using a very soft brush, so 0% hardness, and these are just the default brushes with 0% hardness. I'm going to make it pretty big, and I'm just going to lightly paint over on the color dodge layer. I'm just painting around the lightning bolt. and I'm varying my pressure so it gets a bit, you know, darker in areas, and I can even make that bigger and can play around with different colors. And this is why I really like this approach as opposed to using like just an outer glow layer, because with in nature and you get a lot of color variation, right? And if you just use outer glow, you're not getting all that color variation. So now I just switch to a bit of a, you know, green. I can go in the screen layer as well and, you know, paint in some stuff too. The reason I'm using both a screen and a color dodge is because they kind of handle color a bit differently. Screen tends to be a bit more mild and it preserves color pretty well. With color dodge, the colors get a lot more intense. You can notice how neon they look. If I was to do the same thing with a screen layer, will work. It's just a lot more soft. See, it's just like that. So for lightning, I think color dodge works a bit better. But you can paint, you know, because you have both, you could add in the screen layer, and then the color dodge layer is gonna, you know, enhance that. It's gonna make that stronger because that's on top. Okay, so that's lightning. What else can we do? So let's do fire. So let's say this is a, well, it is a candle on his head. So let's paint in some of that. But just before I get started with that, on the color dodge layer, maybe I'll switch to the screen layer. I'm just going to take some of this color and just want to, you know, paint in some of the like rim light from this effect, so it just looks a bit more convincing that this lightning is actually having an effect on the character. And it pops him off the page. And maybe there's a bit on this candle as well. Alright, so let's create some fire. So the way I go about fire is I'm actually not going to use the color dodge layer. I'm going to use a screen layer, and I'm going to treat it kind of in steps. So the first thing I want to do is create the darker area of the fire, and usually it's almost red. Sometimes it's like an orange, like a pretty deep orange, but it's quite saturated. So something like this maybe. Let's just see if this works. And actually, first thing I should do is probably make the wick of the candle. So let me just put that in real quick. So something like that maybe. It's going to be lighter, and then it's going to get darker near the tip, the part that's on fire. So it's going to get, you know, pretty, almost black probably, maybe a gray. So I'm going to put that in. And so there we have the wick. And now let's go to the screen layer. Get my soft brush again. And it's important that you're using a soft brush for these effects. You don't want to use a, well, you could use a hard brush, I guess, if you're going for some kind of effect. But I'm just going to use a soft brush. So I'll get my orange-ish color, and I'm going to paint in something like this. So this is going to be pretty much the lightest, or I mean the darkest part of the flame, and it's going to be outside. And then I can get a bit more, you know, orange or yellow, create a little bit of that. And then I'm going to select a blue, because often what happens with fire is right near the wick it actually gets blue, because you get a bit of a blue flame. And then Gets a bit yellow. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my brush. So not changing the layer, I'm going to switch my brush actually to color dodge. And what this does is it's going to see if I just paint it on the color dodge layer, it's not going to do anything. And if I paint on the screen layer in the black area, it's not going to do anything with my brush set to color dodge. But if I paint within this screen area, well, you'll see. So I'm going to get a bright yellow, and I'm going to paint the inside. So see how it starts to look like fire already. And pretty much, you know, there's not much more to it than that. And then what I'm going to do is switch my brush back to normal. And now if I paint with black, it's going to actually act as an eraser. So that's one of the useful things of having these on their own black layers. So I'm going to erase the middle part where the wick is, because usually it's kind of how it looks, and there we go, you know. It's pretty good fire. And I can erase as well, you know, the outside of this flame to just clean it up, clean up the shape a bit more. Maybe not that much, maybe leave a bit of that orange. And yeah, I guess I could add more white because it's looking a bit on the dull side, so I'm just going to take some white. And there we go. So we've got fire, we've got lightning, and I should also lighten up the candle because this is going to have an effect, right? So change my brush to normal mode. Can just lighten up that candle, especially on the top. Like so. And you know, if I wanted to paint around on the wick area as well, I can do that to just, you know, define where that is because it's getting a bit lost. And there, so we have fire, we have lightning, and you can also use this for things like eyes, like the same thing I did with the color dodge thing on the flame. I'm going to show you how I can paint an eye like that. So normal, my brush is set to normal. I'm on a screen layer, and I'm just going to paint the iris in. So let's say this guy's got green eyes, and usually what happens is where the iris, like on the edge of the iris, it gets kind of blue. So I'm going to start actually in the blues. I'm going to paint that in. So there we go. We have blue, and I'm going to shift towards green and kind of lighten up each time. Get a bit more towards green. Maybe I'll darken some parts. It's not really important about the value. The values can change quite a bit, so I can get actually pretty dark here. And I'm just adding a lot of color variation right now. So I'm going to stay pretty dark actually. And then something like that is okay. Could add a bit more green overall. Alright, so now we have that. And then what I can do is I can change my brush to color dodge again. Shrink it, maybe pick a lighter color. And now I'm making like these kind of brush strokes. If I exaggerate it, it's kind of like V's that go all around. And I'm starting, you know, from the center and just going around. And now I'm going to make little circles, like let me draw it like these shape almost. I can do that. Change my brush back to color dodge and start doing those. and I can also change the color as well. And you'll see pretty soon you get like, you know, this really interesting type of effect where it's looking complicated. It looks like there's a lot more colors, and you can keep doing this and layering it on top of each other. And then when you zoom in, you'll see that effect you get. It's almost, I think if you've seen close-up pictures of eyes, you'll recognize that effect. So then I can do that, and then if I wanted to, you know, leave the space for the pupil, then I can use my black again, you know, switch to normal, and I'll just turn the hardness all the way up because I want to create a hard edge for the pupil. I can just paint that with black, sorry, and it's just gonna erase. And then there's just a few things on top I could do. So I'm going to create a new layer and set it to multiply because this is a bit too bright. So I'm just going to darken some of it. Maybe I'll leave some of it that intense, but it's just going to get a bit darker. And then I can set a layer on top as well, and then put in the lighter highlight. So first I'm just going to create a bit of color in that pupil. Maybe I'll make it on the red side so that the pupil's not pure black. And now I can just create some of that highlight. So you can use like a circle highlight like that. That works well. You could also make a new layer, set it to screen, and just paint in maybe the environment as a highlight. So you can do something like this, so that maybe there's the environment casting some light, and I'm just gonna erase out some areas so it looks like there's something going on in the environment. And then on top of that, I can put a sharper highlight. And also on the eyeball itself. And I'm just gonna lighten this whole eyeball area because it's a bit too dark. And there we go. So now we have an eyeball, some lightning, and I guess I'll just do some more stuff. So soft brush, I'm just gonna take the hardness back to 0, and I guess I'll just do random like cloud glowy effects. So let's say I want some kind of glow happening. Again, the important thing for me anyway is to add variation, because when you've got a lot of variety, it just looks better, or I think it looks better. So just gonna add a lot of variety, and then I can go on my color dodge layer, start painting on top of that. And you can get, you know, pretty cool glowy effects. And I mean, this is definitely a gimmicky thing. So, you know, it's something you use sparingly, but still think it's nice to share, because sometimes you'll look at pictures and they have nice glowy effects and you don't know how it's done. And for me, for a long time, I didn't really know how it was done, and then started experimenting, and ooh, that kind of looks good. So here we go. It's kind of like a, I don't know, some kind of glowy magic spell thing. And I'm just switching my brush to black so I can erase areas so it looks more like that. And yeah, pretty much that's it. So thanks for watching.